She was just a mother until the day the Dominion murdered her children. What they didn't know was that she used to be their worst nightmare, a ghost from a forgotten war. Now she's back. Not for revenge, but to burn their empire to the ground. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show your support with a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's jump into the story. Aurealis was a quiet place, a small human settlement clinging to the edge of a lonely moon. Life there was simple. People worked hard, shared what they had, and rarely saw trouble beyond a broken machine or a power outage during storms. Nira Voss, a mechanic by trade and a mother by heart, lived with her two children, Rin and Soli, in a weather-beaten shelter made from old ship parts and reinforced steel. Rin, the older of the two, had a spark in his eyes and a mind full of questions. Soli, younger by a year, rarely let go of the cloth rabbit Nira had stitched for her when she was born. The three of them weren't rich, but they had peace and each other. That morning, the sky above Aurealis cracked open with the sound of engines far too loud to belong to a local ship. People stepped out of their homes, shielding their eyes as a black Dominion patrol vessel descended. It wasn't scheduled. Nothing about it felt normal. Farmers and miners stood frozen, staring as the ship's ramp lowered. 6 Dominion enforcers stepped onto the dusty street, clad in sleek armor, their faces hidden behind tinted visors. Their leader, Captain Hark, stood tall, with his hands behind his back and a tone of boredom already in his voice. He didn't come for violence. Not officially. These visits were meant to remind colonies who was in charge. Nir. Pulled Rin and Soli close, hiding them behind a supply crate near her workshop. Her instincts screamed at her, but she stayed still. Hark marched down the center of the settlement, glancing lazily at the small crowd gathering. He began asking questions, routine ones about resource counts, labor quotas, and transport schedules. Nobody answered too slowly. Nobody stepped out of line. Except Rin. The boy slipped out from behind the crate, holding the small ball he always carried. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he was tired of hiding. He walked up to the soldiers, no fear in his steps, and looked straight at them. Soli called softly for him to come back, but he didn't. He just stood there, tiny compared to the armored giants in front of him. Captain Hark tilted his head slightly and looked down at the boy. "Move along," he said in a flat metallic voice. Rin didn't move. The ball slipped from his fingers and rolled across the ground, pumping gently against Hark's boot. Silence fell over the settlement. People stopped breathing. With no warning, Hark raised his rifle and fired. The shot echoed through the street like thunder. Rin dropped where he stood. For a moment, no one moved. Soli's scream tore through the stillness. She ran to her brother. Her rabbit clutched in her arms. Hark turned his weapon again. Another shot. The rabbit dropped. So did Soli. Nira's world shattered. She didn't scream, didn't run. She stood in place, frozen by a pain so sharp it turned her blood to ice. Around her, the village erupted into panic. People fled. Mothers dragged children indoors. Doors slammed, and shouts echoed from every corner. The soldiers fired a few more rounds into the air, not at people, just at rooftops and signs, as if to remind everyone that this was nothing personal. Just control. Just protocol. Captain Hark stepped over the bodies without so much as a glance. "Let that be a lesson," he muttered. Then he turned and boarded the ship. Within minutes, the patrol lifted off, disappearing into the gray clouds of the upper atmosphere, leaving smoke and silence behind. Nira stood still for a long time after they were gone. Her hands were shaking, but her face showed nothing. Not sadness, not rage, just a stillness, heavy and unnatural. Slowly, she walked to where her children lay. She knelt beside them, placed one hand on each of their foreheads, and then rose. Without a word, that night, Nira opened a panel in the wall of her home, one that hadn't been touched in 10 years. Inside was a case, black, worn, locked tight. Her fingers moved over the code like a ritual. It hissed open. The contents inside weren't tools or memories. They were weapons, ones too advanced for a colony mechanic. A rifle that shimmered faintly with energy. A blade that hummed when touched. Armor pieces reinforced with dark metal. Etched with a symbol long outlawed in Dominion space. The truth was, Nira Voss hadn't always been a mother and mechanic. Long ago she was something else, something feared. Something forgotten. She closed the case and looked up. Her eyes were dry. Her voice when she spoke was a whisper. They will learn. Outside, the wind howled over the settlement of Aurealis. Inside, a storm was building, one far more dangerous than the Dominion could imagine. News of the Aurealis massacre traveled slowly, like a shadow stretching across the stars. The land Dominion didn't notice at first. Patrol teams often failed to check in. Ships broke down. Colonies went dark, routine stuff. That's what Commander Sarn believed when the report first crossed his desk. A blip, a delay, a minor issue. He didn't know yet that Aurealis hadn't gone silent by accident. It had been silenced and something had woken up because of it. High above the frozen moon of Tresson 4, Sarn stood on the bridge of his cruiser, bored, reading through colony compliance logs. Another nameless world, another file full of resource numbers and mining quotas. But then, another file opened, flagged, partially corrupted. A single grainy image loaded, smoke, fire, and the shattered shell of a Dominion patrol ship. And, beside it, in the ash, the outline of something humanoid. Standing alone, watching. The image flickered, glitched, and vanished. Sarn frowned and requested a systems check. Across the galaxy, in a hidden outpost far from Dominion routes, Nira Voss stood at a makeshift command table lit only by a dim blue lamp. She wasn't the same woman who once fixed generators and soothed nightmares. The mother was still there, but something older had surfaced, something the Dominion had buried long ago. The weapons she had unsealed were once part of a life she'd sworn to forget. But when they killed Rin and Soli, they didn't just take her children. They pulled her past back into the light. Her fingers danced across the table's interface as an old voice crackled to life. "Juno system reactivated," said the AI, its voice feminine and calm, almost kind. "Welcome back, operative." Nira closed her eyes for a second. She hadn't heard that greeting in over a decade. "I need access to all pre-Dominion route maps and find Lee-Ray." The AI paused. Lee-Ray was last tracked on Venor 9, status unknown. Try anyway. Juno processed the command as Nira pulled on her old armor piece by piece. It was no longer smooth and polished like the days when she served under false flags. Now it bore the scratches of history. She checked her blade, holstered the rifle, and slung her pack over one shoulder. On the edges of controlled space, Lee-Ray wasn't hard to find if you knew what shadows to look in. She ran an underground channel for people looking to disappear or reappear, depending on who was asking. When the door slid open and she saw Nira standing there, she didn't speak. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. "You're dead," Lee-Ray whispered finally. "You vanished." "I did," Nira answered. "But I'm back." Lee-Ray let her in without another word. They sat in the back room of a dim bar while a storm brewed outside. Nira explained what had happened, Aurealis, the children, the massacre. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just spoke. Lee-Ray listened, her jaw tightening with every sentence. "I need locations," Nira said. "Outposts. Supply routes. Patrol rosters. Everything." Lee-Ray nodded slowly. "You're going to war. I already started it." While Nira rebuilt herself, the Dominion was trying to understand what was happening. Reports started coming in. One outpost had lost communication. Another had been hit so fast the guards didn't even draw weapons. Surveillance drones showed only fragments. A flicker of a figure in black, a whisper of movement, and then silence. Commander Sarn connected the dots faster than his peers. He remembered rumors from years ago, stories the Dominion labeled as false or exaggerated. A woman with unmatched skill, trained before the Empire tightened its grip. A killer who vanished after refusing one final mission. He pulled up restricted files blacklisted, records sealed under old protocols. There, buried in code and warnings, was a name, Nira Voss, not a mechanic, not a colonist, a ghost. Sarn's heart sank. If the stories were true, they hadn't just sparked a rebellion, they'd ignited a legend. He ordered security doubled across outer colonies. He sent messages to Central Command requesting reinforcements. But in his gut, he already knew it wouldn't matter. Nira didn't strike with armies. She moved alone, silent, unseen. She hijacked Dominion transports in the dead of night, freed prisoners, delivered food to starving colonies left out of resource runs. Each act was small, surgical, but each one lit another spark across the stars. And the whispers began. She's back. The Raven Mother walks. She's hunting them. People started listening. Refugees began rallying. Mercenaries refused. Contracts involving her name. Even pirates, men and women without honor, whispered stories of her gliding through flames with a blade that sang like death. Sarn watched as influence maps shifted. Yellow zones turned red. Secure colonies became unstable. The Dominion's control wasn't breaking, it was crumbling. But he wasn't ready to give up. He contacted Central Command and asked for special authorization if a ghost had returned. He'd call in something darker. Back on her ship, Nira stood at the window, staring at the empty black sky. Her children's faces lived behind her eyes, burned into her memory with perfect clarity. They weren't just lost, they had been taken. And the Dominion had not yet begun to understand what they had awakened. She turned to Juno. Begin the next phase. Juno replied, target coordinates confirmed. Weapons primed. Stealth mode engaged. The stars outside blinked faintly as her ship disappeared into the void. Nira Voss was back, and this time she wasn't running. She was coming. Corin never failed a contract. He wasn't the kind of bounty hunter who needed to brag or show off. He simply found his target, ended the job, and got paid. That's what made him dangerous. He didn't ask why. He didn't care who. And when Commander Sarn offered him double the standard rate to track down and kill Nira Voss, he only asked for the coordinates and the deadline. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in credits. Nira's trail wasn't easy to follow. She never stayed long in one place, never struck the same way twice. Her movements were calculated, precise. She hit supply depots, freed labor camps, and sabotaged Dominion weapons shipments. Each time she left no trace, just silence and wreckage. Corin chased her from asteroid belts to derelict moons, through burnt-out stations and forgotten mining tunnels. She was fast, but he was patient. And he had something she didn't know. He'd seen her before, years ago. During the border skirmishes on Talon's Rim, Corin had been a soldier. Just a scared young man in a uniform too big for his frame, hiding behind a wall of sand and metal while Dominion forces overran the trenches. His entire squad was wiped out. He should have died too. But someone in dark armor, and faster than the eye could follow, dragged him from the wreckage, shot 3 Dominion officers in under 5 seconds, and vanished before he could say a word. He remembered that night every time he looked at the long scar running across his ribs. Now hunting Nira, he began to wonder if the person who saved him was the same one they wanted him to kill. Meanwhile, the Dominion grew desperate. Sarn had authorized access to classified files, pulling out names and technology once thought retired. Among those secrets was a man named Toma, a Dominion scientist hidden deep within a frozen archive facility on Desix 3. Toma wasn't the fighter he lived in silence, keeping records of the Empire's oldest mistakes. When Dominion agents brought him the footage of Nira's attacks, his eyes narrowed behind thick glasses. "She's not just a rogue operative," he said. "She's a prototype." The agents exchanged glances. She was part of an early genetic program. They trained soldiers not just in combat, but in anticipation, reading motion before it happened, feeling danger before it struck. They called it the Whisper Project. Most of it failed. Except one. Toma leaned back. She wasn't built for revenge. She was built for survival. That's why you can't stop her. Back in deep space, Nira sat in the cockpit of her ship, watching flickers of activity on her screen. She knew someone was following her, not Dominion. Someone quieter, smarter, and closer than she liked. She didn't mind. A chase was just another kind of test. She docked at an abandoned mining platform orbiting a dead star. The place was old, rusted, and full of shadows. Perfect. She walked its broken halls in silence, her rifle ready, her visor scanning every flicker. She wasn't running. She was waiting. Corin landed 2 hours later. He stepped through the same corridors, tracking her heat signatures and broken dust trails. He didn't expect a trap, but he wasn't foolish enough to ignore the possibility. As he moved, he heard a whisper behind him, "You're getting slow." He spun. She was standing behind a row of pipes, her rifle lowered, her eyes unreadable. Behind her helmet, "You saved me," he said without thinking. "On Talon's rim." She didn't answer. "I remember the scar." "You didn't even look back." Nira didn't lower her guard. "And yet here you are, pointing a weapon at me." "I was paid to kill a ghost," Corin said. "Didn't know the ghost had a face." A long silence followed. Then finally Nira spoke. "The Dominion killed my children." Corin didn't flinch. "They've killed a lot of people. They made a mistake thinking I'd forget," she said. "I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to burn them to the ground." Corin thought about it, about the silence that followed her, the trail of broken chains and freed prisoners, the children hiding in ruins who whispered her name like a secret prayer. He lowered his weapon. "I'm not here to stop you," he said. "I'm here to warn you. They're bringing something worse." "What worse?" "A team," he said. "Not soldiers. Not mercs, monsters, built to end wars before they start." Nira's eyes narrowed. "Omega class." Corin nodded. She turned without another word and disappeared into the platform's lower levels. Later that night, her ship emerged from the platform, flying low and fast. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was moving toward the Dominion's forward command station, one of the largest outposts in that sector. She wasn't going to sneak in. She was going to walk through the front. From his own ship, Corin watched her disappear into the void. He didn't follow. Not every ghost is meant to be chased. Some are meant to lead. The Dominion outpost known as Blackhold stood like a scar across the stars. Built into the shell of a hollowed asteroid, it was layered with turrets, shield generators, and walls thick enough to survive a supernova. No rebel had ever breached its defenses. No outsider had ever escaped it. Until now, Nira Voss had arrived. She didn't come with a fleet. She didn't call for backup. She didn't ask for mercy. Her ship, old and scorched from battle, cut through the Dominion's outer defense ring like a whisper. Alarms blared, cannons turned, and dozens of enemy fighters launched into space. But she didn't flinch. She moved like a force of nature, swift, relentless, focused. The command room on Blackhold trembled with shouts as officers scrambled for answers. Admiral Vaylor stood at the center, tall and cold, his expression unreadable. "It's her," a lieutenant stammered. "She's here." Vaylor didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "Prepare the guards." Below, in the refugee quarter of a nearby colony station, a small boy named Tal watched the chaos unfold on a broken screen. He had no family left. Dominion soldiers had seen to that. But he had heard the stories of the woman in black armor. The one who struck without warning and left nothing but silence behind. They said she moved like smoke and fought like fire. They said her name like a promise. Tal whispered it now under his breath. Nira. Inside the halls of Blackhold, she moved. Without hesitation. Every guard that crossed her path fell. Some tried to fight. Some tried to run. It didn't matter. Her blade sang with each strike, and her rifle barked with perfect aim. She didn't pause to breathe. She didn't speak. The halls echoed with footsteps and fear. Vaylor watched the surveillance feeds with narrowed eyes. He had studied her file, watched every second of recovered footage, analyzed her moves. She was fast, yes, but what made her dangerous was something harder to measure. She fought with purpose, not for glory, not for vengeance, for something deeper. He hated that. He ordered the release of the last defense unit, the Red Sentinels. Machines of war, enhanced with Dominion tech, designed for one purpose, to stop anything. Anything but her. They waited in the core chamber of the station, weapons humming, systems locked. Nira stepped into the room, her armor scratched and darkened, her breath steady. The Sentinels opened fire. She didn't dodge the first round. She redirected it, bouncing the shot off her shield and diving into the chaos. She moved like water, slipping between bursts of energy and metal limbs. She found weakness in every strike. Within moments, the machines were nothing but scrap. The doors ahead opened. Vaylor stood alone in the center of the command hall. "You're too late," he said calmly. "Whatever you're trying to prove, it ends here." She stepped forward. "You killed children. My children. I gave the order," he said without regret. "I would give it again. Fear is the only way to control people like you." She didn't answer. She moved. Their fight was violent and short. Vaylor was strong, trained, and equipped with the best armor the Dominion could provide. But she was something else, faster, sharper, focused like a blade. He landed a blow that cracked her ribs, but she twisted through it, drove her blade into the joint of his shoulder, and knocked his rifle away. He fought with pride. She fought with fire. And pride burns. He dropped to his knees, gasping, blood on his lips. "You think this changes anything?" he said. "There will always be another like me." "Maybe," she whispered. "But not today." She pulled the trigger. Outside, Tal watched the sky. The station above flickered, then bloomed with a soft explosion. Not enough to destroy it completely, but enough to break it open. The Dominion forces scrambled, their command chain fractured. For the first time in generations, they didn't know what to do. The resistance didn't hesitate. All across the outer systems, hidden networks lit up. Smugglers, ex-soldiers, even frightened civilians began to rise. They shared Nira's message, her image, her name. Her single broadcast from the heart of the station reached every corner of Dominion space. "You broke something that cannot be repaired," she had said. "So I won't repair it. I'll tear it down." She disappeared after that. No one knew where she went. Some said she died in the fire. Others believed she walked into the stars and became part of them. But in the years that followed, things changed. The Dominion cracked, system by system. Planets claimed freedom. People told her story not as a warrior or a killer, but as a mother who rose from silence to shake an empire. And on one quiet moon, under a sky full of stars, a boy named Tal held a wooden carving of her in his hands. He looked up, eyes wide, and whispered her name one last time. The stars did not answer, they remembered.